Cool.
Okay. Hi, everyone. This is the Node.js tooling group meeting for December 10th, 2021. Yeah, so should we start with the stuff that's on the agenda and then get to the new business at the end, or?
That sounds good to me. Maybe give a brief introduction for Daniel too, to explain what we're up to. I'm happy to do that.
Sure.
So we've been having this, I think I explained this to you a little bit and when we were talking about it, Daniel, but basically we've been having this meeting for a few years now, and it was originally started to try to improve the API surface in Node.js for folks writing things like yargs, or Ian works on Create React App, and some folks from Mocha were in the started it too. We have some folks from IBM who joined, Joe. And so, yeah, we've had kind of a revolving door of folks who care about tooling in the Node code base. Most of the work we've done has been to add improvements to the file system, which we've kind of championed over the years. And then there's code coverage, and then we've been talking a lot about argument parsing lately, which I think is in the agenda today. So,
nice, thanks for the invite.
Oh, no worries. Okay, let's dive into the agenda.
Yeah, so the first thing on the agenda, I guess, is me. This thing we've been talking about, some kind of like lint rules or whatever to tell people about things that are built into Node, but I don't know, it's been kind of like on pause for a while. I'm not really sure what the best way to go there is. So no update for me on that. What about recursive copy, Ben? Anything new there?
Yes. 1 second though, I was going to find one link I wanted to link. If I can find it. I might have shared it last time. Here it is. I think I probably shared this last time, but I keep seeing these threads on Twitter where people are basically asking for exactly this linting tool, or like something that would point them in the right direction. So I thought I would share that link, that tweet.
Oh.
And I don't know if I shared this before, but the person's like, it's basically saying from a security perspective how they wish that, how it's nice to have more built-in stuff, and how and then they're just talking about how there's McDerp and rimraf and fs.copy and random UID. So it's like, I don't know, it's kind of neat because it's someone saying that they like what we've been doing, but also that it maybe kind of shows we need to find a way to make sure people know these new features exist, right? So, but maybe we need to get more people excited at an in-person meeting or something in the new year.
Yeah.
And the softest moments.
Still wanted to try building like, something to do this, like even just like a prototype or something. So I'll keep it on my list, maybe over the holidays or something else sometime.
Okay, so I do have updates for recursive copy. I talked to, oh, my brain is not working today. Who did I talk to? I talked to James Snell and asked him if it would be a blocker for him if to go to GA, to go to stable, if we didn't have support for array buffers. And I made if we didn't have support for, I guess, buffers instead of strings for file names. And I made the case that it was turning into an absolute mess to try to implement it. And we hadn't had anyone complain yet that we hadn't implemented it. So I was asking if we could just treat this as a missing feature and be open to addressing it as soon as we have some users who are blocked on using copy because they're in some keyboard, some Unicode form that doesn't work properly with the string. And James said he's fine with that. So I think we could probably move forward with calling it stable pretty soon. There aren't too many open issues. Maybe we wait maybe we'll get more adoption with Node 16. Did Node 16 recently go stable, or is it going stable soon?
Did in October.
Yeah. maybe give it a couple more months before we call it stable, see if we have any issues open. But I think recursive copy is in Node 16, right?
Yes.
Like from the get-go, yeah. Let me
All right,
just
well,
double check.
It's good that you didn't have any objections to making it not experimental.
Yeah, I think I mean, as long as we're cognizant and keep an eye on if there actually are issues that are biting customers, right? Or if I say customers, I mean users, because we're not really selling anything. Yeah, my work brain is running right now. Yeah, I mean, when did it go out? Recursive copy went out. .7.0. So, and what was the first 16 that was stable?
It was like 16.11 or something, 16.10.
Yeah, so I guess by the first stable release of 16, it will have had recursive. So yeah, maybe we don't call it stable until a few months from now, a couple months from now, maybe. See how it's going in 16 now that people have it in their default Node version.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
But let's not leave it for years like we did with RimRaf.
Wait, RimRaf wasn't experimental. Are you thinking of something else?
I thought didn't we leave recursive removes experimental for a long time? I think we did.
Maybe. I don't remember
because we had it built into rimdir first.
Yeah.
And then that was experimental, and then we went through that whole big exercise with making RM to make
right.
recursive remove stable, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think once we moved it to RM, it was stable.
He didn't really ask for this, but I said I'd promise to keep an eye on like weird Unicode problems. Like I have that half done PR, it was just getting hideous. So like if we had someone who was really excited to use recursive copy and say some Japanese character set who couldn't, then I think we could do the ugly thing I'd been working on, just push it forward. But it seems like landing 2,000 lines of code if we don't have a reason to is a waste of time. So, all right, we can move on.
Okay.
Everyone okay.
Yeah. Up next, we have argument parsing.
Yes.
Is there anything you want to say on that? I know you did. You were doing a bit there. I saw.
Yeah, I have some updates.
Okay.
So let me see here. I was hoping to get. Oh, you approved it. I think I was going to make one change based on feedback. I want to go through this again. Let me see here. I wanted to update this edit I have so that it's flags and values instead of flags and args. But I basically, based on the feedback from, let me actually link it so we know what I'm talking about. I have a straw person proposal to rename opts and what was it originally? It was args and values originally, args and values. I have a proposal open to rename args and values to flags and args, but I think it would actually be better to call it flags and values. So what we're getting rid of is args because args is kind of encompasses both. And I agreed with the feedback we were getting from, that was based on feedback from Shadowspawn is their name. What's their actual name? Non-GitHub name. John Gee, who is one of the main maintainers of Commander. So this is great. We have Yargs people and Commander people working together to try to add argument parsing into Node. So I think this will really help. I think when we actually try to merge it into Node, this will make a really strong case that we have two of the main argument parsing implementers. Can't wait to stop rating argument parsing implementations. So no, I'm kidding. But I mean, it looks like you signed off, Ian. But are you okay with me switching it to values instead of args?
Yeah, I don't actually remember seeing these comments when I reviewed it. I must have just missed them. So yes, I am fine with that. I think they make a good point. So let's do that.
And Shadowspawn thumbs up my proposal. So I'm going to put do not merge on this right now, just as a warning to people, and then I'll come back and.
I don't think anyone's going to merge it anyways, other than you, but probably doesn't hurt.
Yeah, there, just in case. Cool. Well, that's exciting. Yeah, so Shadowspawn has opened some great feedback. So I think just trying to get all the work done to address any of the feedback we have open, I think, and then get a PR open on the Node code base would be cool. I created I guess the other thing is I created a milestone called merge into Node.js. And I felt like these are from reading through all the issues, I felt like these for me were the blockers to merge it into Node.js. I just linked it. So what were they? They were add support for short option groups.
Yep.
Finalize the variable names for arguments returned by parse, which is that PR that's already open. So I think if we're happy with that, we can close that once that's done. Establish error message approach. This one was more about do we throw or do we not throw?
Yeah. I
think. Or like never fails versus do fail. So I think that one has to have some discussion.
I know we've talked about it a lot, but I don't think we ever really landed on a definitive solution. So
I think that's related. I think number 11 and number 6 are pretty related. They both relate to like how strict is the parser? Do we throw errors? Do we just return an error object? So I think if we could solve how we handle errors, then that would close 2 of the blockers for proposing it landing in Node.
Yeah, is that something we would want to make like configurable? I don't know. Like you could pass like a throw on error option or something.
I don't know. I don't really have an opinion. I need to parse through. Like Shadowspawn again's made an impassioned argument, and I think Jordan's LJ Harbs made an argument as well. So I think I need to parse what they're saying, and I don't feel super. I don't know. I don't feel super strongly about whether we return whether it's possible to have an error or not, and whether we throw. Trying to think of how in Yargs' approach, I definitely want to do, which is it suppresses errors and prints out like a pretty error as its default behavior, which I think it would be better if someone either got an error object or caught and then did that themselves if that's what they wanted. Because I think what we've been talking about is you would use this to build something like Yargs. It's not like something like Yargs itself, right? So,
right.
So
trying to think what you would want. We talked about like the simple use case, right? Like the 80% use case. Like I'm writing a CLI that takes like 2 arguments. What would you want in that case? You know,
if you're writing a CLI that takes 2 arguments,
or just something simple, you know, like
you might probably just want to put it in a try catch block, and then you decide whether or not you want to print the error or not, right?
Yeah, maybe.
And like. If you want to raise an error, then you just don't put a try catch in. If you want to print an error, you catch it and print just the message, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like a pretty reasonable approach to me. Then it is.
I should even read this. I don't even know if I'm like making up another side of an argument here. Like, let me take a look here.
I mean, the nice thing with that approach is it kind of is configurable at that point, right? Like, it's up to you if you want to catch it or not.
Yeah. I guess the point, yeah, because there have been a few folks, suggesting that parse never fail on user input, and perhaps error information could be a property in the results. I see the attraction and interested in I see the attraction and I'm interested in trying that approach. I guess I guess there's a strict mode that had been documented though, and would strict mode throw? Oh yeah, so I guess I'm just reading the original proposal. I guess did Darcy write this or Christopher maybe? It's suggesting there's a strict mode flag that would throw rather than returning an error object, and then you can choose whether to turn it on or not. So
I don't see that in the main.
That's in the readme.markdown.
Oh yeah, there we go. Strict. Yeah.
That seems like reasonable to me. And if we're having relative consensus there, maybe we just go with that approach.
Yeah, I'm okay with that as well.
And that's not implemented yet, so I'm just reading the code. So, all right.
I guess I had one. I have one issue on here that I'm working on as well, which is just getting the that islint plugin that I made moved over to pkg.js, and I actually have access to like the npm account now, so I can publish it. So maybe I'll do that after the meeting here.
Cool. And then we can stop using the GitHub repo.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, just talk over.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, it's okay. I was actually on another question on the arc parse strict option. So what happens if you, so it says that there's an error on unknown args, but what happens if it's expecting a value and you pass in an arg like it's a flag, like something that expects something at the end, but you don't like give it like an actual value? Should it throw if strict is false, or how do we want to handle that situation?
I think it would be like it's an error either way, I think. And so then without strict mode, you would end up with like an errors object or something that had an error message for that argument, and in strict mode it would throw. That makes sense?
I think so. And then like if you have any things that don't always take arguments, then those would be probably flags, I think, at which point it probably wouldn't be an error. It would just be if you don't give it an argument, it becomes true, I think, right? So that's probably the behavior we landed on.
Yeah.
Because once you've said it expects a value, you expect it's going to get like a string or a number or something.
Right.
So I think that'd be caught under this. My impression was what Ian said, Daniel. I think it would be throw if you have strict, error object if you don't.
Right.
Maybe the error object is just an error string, maybe, honestly. Or maybe like an object with a message and the field maybe is better.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. It would be like this field produced this error. Maybe I'll try building the strict mode this weekend. Sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah. Anyone should feel free to pick that up. Yeah, I'm like bullish on making this PR on Node. I think it's will be the cat's meow. Yeah, I think people will be really excited about it because it's such a neat addition to Node.
Yeah, I think we're close to making that happen. So,
all right, I'm going to add the new business stuff in. So let's talk about Daniel's idea of find up, which I'd never thought of. And actually, let me make sure. I think I directed Daniel towards find up, but he described a different problem to me. So I want to see I'm going to call it what Ben is describing as. But yeah, Daniel, why don't you tell us what you were talking to me about the other week?
Yeah, I think something like I think it would be nice if packages had the ability to quickly and conveniently get its nearest package JSON. So that way you're able to get, let's say if you want to print out the version, if you're a CLI tool, or if you just want general metadata from the package JSON. And currently there isn't a clean way to do that, except for if you do like a relative import. But the problem with that is if you use something like TypeScript, where it might move your build, and it might break that. So I think in a language, it would be nice if there was a convenient way to get the package JSON.
So this is funny. It literally just implemented this functionality like last week, I think.
Looks like Bradley has a question, or maybe related to this. Do you want to?
Oh, I didn't notice. Here, let me.
We brought him to a panelist.
Yeah, I didn't even notice he joined. One sec.
Yeah, and then so I had this conversation with Daniel, and then I was saying, like, you know what I use all the time is the find app package, which is a little different than the file system stuff we've done, but I could imagine it being built into Node. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, so I don't think there's really a problem with it, but there are some like caveats that probably should be discussed. This has been brought up a bunch of times in the issue tracker. One is your package JSON might not be the one at the root of your package, if that makes sense. So some tools do have like nested package JSONs. This is becoming more common thanks to the type field in package JSON, where if you generate something with TypeScript, for example, because we were talking about that, it might be put into a dist folder, and that might have a package JSON with a type module, whereas the one directory above it would be type common.js or not have type. Doesn't really matter. So the other is like knowing when you're exiting your package, like you probably want to have some kind of barrier to not cross node modules directories. Like probably don't want that. Also, preserve symlinks makes this like an absolute nightmare. If you use preserve symlinks, which I never recommend you do, PNPM never recommends you do, Yarn never recommends you do, nobody ever recommends you do except for one specific team at Google. This is like an impossible feature. You can't do it.
Just because you're going to be like hitting loops in the directory structure? Or?
No, because you can't tell where you came from exactly.
Gotcha, yeah.
Because it would be like asking, what's the package JSON for any file that could point to me? And there could be multiple. Like, preserve symlinks is a very bad state of the world. So like if preserve symlinks is on, this has to throw. Like it would work sometimes, but other times it would just give you the wrong answer.
I think that's fair.
I'm fine with all of these. These are all fine. These are just things that need to be brought up.
I have a question. Is there, I mean, there's no like opposite of this functionality in Node either though, right? There's no like find, there's no like fs find, is there?
Find, you mean like recurse up or something?
Well, this would be recurse up, right? There, what I'm saying is there's no like.
Well, I think this would be recurse down, because you want to find like the closest package JSON that you care
up and
about.
down might be bad. Towards root or away from root.
Yeah.
Let's call it that.
Yeah.
Would be
towards root.
Adding find up when there's no find or find down. See,
So-
like, should we add both?
There is an alternative that has been discussed a few times. That one's a little bit harder to do because when you do a resolve operation, like you're resolving Babel / parser, there are actually multiple package JSONs involved. There is the resolution package JSON, and then there's the metadata package JSON. This, I think the feature request is just to find the closest one towards the root. Not, there's only ever one, because there is an inverse operation, but it has multiple potential things people want.
Right.
Like I think Daniel's original question to me was basically, how do I know the package JSON I care about as an example, a CLI, so that I can show the version number of the specific package JSON I'm like. An example in Yargs would be, I have Yargs as a dependency, but I am myself a package. I am myself a CLI tool, but I have Yargs as a dependency. I want to print out the version number of the thing wrapping Yargs, not Yargs itself, right? So you end up in these positions where you're trying to find these package JSONs that you care about.
This might not work if that's the case. If the idea is traversing up outside your package boundary, PNPM and Yarn 2 and 3 are not going to work because they real path outside of your application working directory.
Oh, that's a
their
good point.
caches.
Maybe I'm what are some of your use cases are different than mine though, Daniel, right? Because you cared about like the version number of the specific library for like TypeScript, right? Yeah. So that's simpler, I think.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, and even in the Yargs case, if there's a way that the local the thing that's depending on Yargs to get its version and then just inject it into Yarg as an argument, I think that could work as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Maybe Yargs is being too clever in this, trying to do it for you magically, which, like Brad says, doesn't really work in the world where we have a workspace that lives outside that directory. That makes sense.
Yeah, so Meow was a popular package that did something similar, and they stopped doing that functionality and now do require a parameter be passed in.
That makes sense. Anyways, I think this is a reasonably good idea to explore with caveats.
I mean, just document the caveats.
Yeah.
You don't need to like fix them. I don't.
Yeah.
I kind of find it interesting though that. What do I find interesting? Like, so in the TypeScript example, say you're going into a build directory, Daniel, you basically just want to find the package JSON that lives outside that build directory because that's going to be the version number you care. That's going to be the metadata you care about, right? Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if one of the parent directories is like node modules, then we just throw an error or raise an error.
Yeah.
If it's but if you recurse up and you find a package JSON, grab it, get its metadata.
Maybe I felt like there was some confusion about, is it searching down or searching up? And it makes me think that, what did you suggest, Brad? Like, what was yours was like?
Just
Towards the
include,
root.
Yeah.
include the reference point, which is the root of the file system. So like
Yeah.
forwards in a way seems good.
Some sort of name that disambiguates like that, I think could be good. So maybe if we shouldn't go with find up just because that's what the other packages are called, maybe we could pick something that disambiguates.
It also might make sense, instead of it being a single return value, it could be an async iterator, for example. So you could just keep grabbing until you find the one you want. I highly doubt you're going to find more than 2 in a row, but I could imagine 3. Like, if it is an async iterator you probably don't want to throw when you encounter node modules. You probably just want to return null or something, some terminator. Because
That makes sense.
throw would be hard to deal with in a for loop.
That makes sense. Thanks for the perspective, Brad. Yeah. Does this give you sufficient information to start nerding out about it, Daniel?
Yes, it does. Yeah, thanks for the feedback.
I think you've actually asked for literally the opposite thing, Ian, which isn't, I don't think it's a bad idea either, but I think that's why we need to get the naming right, because this is like going, like Brad says, you're where you are going up, 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 up until you hit a package JSON. Whereas I think you were saying like, find me a file from where I am in the directory, maybe upwards, right? Or
Yeah, I am confused then, because the case that I'm thinking of is like going to the parent directory to look for a file, then going to the parent directory to look for a file until you find like
Yeah.
I think we may be talking about the same thing.
That's where it's,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
talking about the same thing.
Yeah, maybe call it like find parent or something. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I think that makes
So
sense.
there's a precedent in the DOM APIs for nearest ancestor that they also call it closest. So yeah.
Let me write that down. Nearest ancestor, closest. That's not spelled right. There we go. I have a couple more new pieces of business. If folks are okay moving on. Is that good enough on that topic for now? And we'll create I should say, yeah, Daniel, if you create a GitHub issue on that tooling repo, we can take it with agenda. So we just talk about it in each of these meetings so that we can move it forward. Also, it lets the public comment and like, so you actually can kind of see concerns folks might have before you get too far into implementation, which can be good. So there's an interesting issue on Node.js right now that I wanted to talk about in this meeting. Let me just find it. And it relates to file system stuff. 1 second.
Is this that thing that Ethan Arrowood was talking about?
I don't think so. What was Ethan Harwood talking about?
I'm trying to find the tweet. I think you were talking with him about it on Twitter. It was some file system related thing as well. So I thought maybe that's what you were referring to, but.
There's actually a few FS things open. We might want to do a little triage here, and we don't have to do that on this meeting, but I can kind of.
I don't know if people are aware that Yarn is also working on FS hooks for loaders. So
I didn't know that.
That might not be in this working group's general circle of what they're looking at.
How would FS hooks would be like just being able to react to as files change on disk, or like?
No, being able to intercept the FS modules behavior.
Oh, I see. I understand. Okay. And would the purpose for that be like if you wanted to do different types of file systems, or?
Yeah, so Yarn and Electron and Web Package, well, now called bundled exchanges, I think. All are 3 forms of runtimes which are able to have archives load things directly. So they're not real files on disk. They're out of a zip or they're out of an ASAR file in Electron's case. But they are currently modifying the FS module in Node Core, and that's not working so great with ES modules because ES modules don't let you patch in the same way.
That makes sense. I understand. So now instead of you like overrating the global, you would have like some blessed injection. You'd have some blessed like extension points for different types of operations.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Node itself could almost use that, because don't we just for JavaScript, for like the JavaScript part of Node, we just basically bake it into the tail end of the executable, right?
Well, you're kind of, but you had something else. I was just bringing it up as a
Sorry, that's not currently on our agenda. The thing I wanted to bring up was a breaking change. Tierney was kind of confused by the return value in mcdir, specifically mcdir recursive. And I don't want to leave them hanging on their issue. I guess the underlying, and this came up when we built mcdir, like when we built the recursive version of mcdir years ago. There's like this question of whether it always returns, of what its return value should be, the deepest directory that had to be created, or just the deepest directory, I think was, and I think the behavior is the deepest directory that it actually had to create, which is kind of, I think, useful because it tells you what happened. Like, you know, it provides some information about what actually happened. So, and I think we actually implemented it the opposite way initially, and then someone who used mcdir asked us to implement it this way. Let me just double check the return value here. I just want to make sure I'm not making anything up. Yeah, it returns a string which is equal to, it doesn't say what it's equal to because these docs could be better, but I'm pretty sure it's equal to the deepest directory that had to be created. So the thing is, like, I don't have a super strong opinion. Tierney seems to have a pretty strong opinion, but unfortunately it's a feature that's been out for years, and it seems like a risky breaking change. So I don't know what a good compromise is. Like, I don't like the idea of switching the value, like, just because it's a breaking change for the community. That's my concern at this point. So I was even wondering about escalating it to the TSC and see what their opinion is. Like,
just my 2 cents here. I think the existing behavior provides more useful information that you can't really get. That's very like difficult to get unless, you know, with the separate FS call. But the return value of the larger thing you can just get with fs.resolve, or I think it's resolve.
oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that the current thing gives you more useful information.
That tends to be my opinion too. So I feel crummy if someone's having a friction-y experience, though. I don't know how to resolve their friction. I mean, in their sample code, they are calling resolve themselves so that they have the fully resolved. I'm just reading through their example code. I don't need to solve it here. Maybe the action item is reach out to Tierney and just see if there's if there's any compromise at all. I'm a little worried about. I'd be more worried that there's some implementations in the wild, because it would be hard to notice this breaking change, because just suddenly your app, maybe you've written an app that relies on this providing information about which directory was actually created, and now it's just a slightly different string. I feel like that would just be a really bad experience from someone who has a program in the wild. Like, and it would be a really easy thing to miss when you're upgrading your application. So I don't know. I'd be up for it taking a flag.
Yeah, I think changing the default, like I agree with you, is going to break stuff. Do we lose Ben?
No, sorry. I was just rereading. Sorry. I was very slowly rereading. I was rereading the thread. Yeah, I think just when I'll reach out to Tierney and explain our point of view, because I think it's a risky. I think it's a risky breaking change, to be honest. So different story if we hadn't landed it like 3 or 4 years ago. Like I don't care that much about this feature. Yeah.
So is he just wanting to be able to use the return value that he passed in? Would it always match the parameter he passes in his case?
That's what I think so. So I'm just wondering if I'm partially misunderstanding the question. Like I'm trying to figure out the friction.
Yeah, I think
better.
that is it. It's he has to save it to a temporary variable right now, right?
Yeah.
That's the friction.
Yeah. I'll reach out to Tierney and be like, because I just don't think we can break this feature, honestly. Like I'm not seeing the benefit to breaking the feature versus the cost of the friction.
I mean,
Personally.
it's so small that I think they would always match. I know people hate adding on to core, but convenience methods are convenient.
Like how do you mean?
I mean, if there was a secondary method that like was like mkdir and it's recursive and an option to not return this value, or a different method name that didn't return the same value, I think both those are possible.
Maybe the options. Oh, sorry to talk over you, Brad.
Yeah, just changing defaults is the danger.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe I should just make a stronger case for the option then, because like if it's enough to, if it's a nice little if it gets rid of 4 lines of code and you'd use it, like adding an option's not the end of the world. Like we don't want to fall into a world of adding 1 million options, but I don't know. I'd make a case for an option.
The key is it lets it all be in a single expression position.
Oh, you kind of cut out there for me. Sorry.
Nope. Sorry.
You just kind of cut out. Sorry, Brad.
I mean, the key case here is it lets everything be in an expression position. You can use like a map operation and get it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was figuring. Like I thought there was probably some nice kind of elegance that was annoying that Tierney wasn't getting. So that's why I was trying to be at least open to the recommendation if we can figure out a way to do it without like breaking the world. So okay, I mean, I don't know. It sounds like we talked this one through pretty well. Reach out to Tierney, see if the option, make sure the option isn't, a dead end. Like, see if there's a compromise. Anyone else have any? Oh, sorry, Ian, you were going to say something?
I was just going to ask if you had any. You said you had a few new things. I was just going to ask if you had more.
I thought I had one more, and now I'm blanking on it. So maybe I only have one. There's the FS stuff. Sorry, there's the mkdir stuff. There was the stuff Daniel brought up. Then there was the going stable with the copy behavior. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything on my mind. I won't make up an agenda item just because I forgot one.
I have been trying and failing to find the thing that I was thinking about. So I'll maybe keep looking, and if I do, I'll post it on Slack or whatever.
Yeah. I'm feeling good. I think we've got some traction on the argument parsing now, which I'm excited about.
Mhm.
It's slowly being kicked along. So I'm really excited about that feature. I'm excited about doing something like, I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but I continue to think it's a good idea to do something like MPX for Node, where MPX is a bad example, but something like Python's thing where you can just run some of the standard modules with a flag. So like you could, if you wanted to do rimraf, you can just run our fs module dot rimdir recursive, like being able to pass some flags into some common fs operations, because then your npm script could just be, your npm script could literally get rimraf by just running the fs remove recursive, or it could get copy by just running the fs recursive copy, or like make a directory with just the fs mcdir.
Yeah, you're talking about something like the Python-M simple HTTP server is like the classic one.
Exactly, because people do that today, and we've talked about this before, so I'm like bringing it up again, partially to Nerd Snipe Daniel, I think, but basically, like everyone in their package JSONs will frequently pull in rimraf or say the CPR module or like McDirp, so that they can just have it as part of their npm scripts, which do some sort of bring up and tear down between tests or whatever. We can totally do that with Node itself now as we start to build these things in, right? I think it's kind of cool.
You can do that, right? If you do like Node-E fs.rm.
Oh, yeah, but that's really frictiony against shell command line argument styles.
Right.
I was just thinking that if we have like a built-in minimalist command line parser, we could totally be our own consumer of it and expose some of these things, right? I think that'd be super cool.
Yeah, we talked about that long ago, I think, when we started talking about argument parsing. So maybe once we get that done, we can.
I feel like we've actually got momentum now. I think we're going to land it. We lost momentum. We're getting some again. Cool. That's everything on my mind. I just wanted to bring that topic up again because I'm one-track minded.
Yeah, okay. I don't have anything else for today. Anyone else? All right, let's wrap it up then. Thanks for coming, everyone.
We should probably say, do we want, when's the next one? Because we'll be basically Christmas, right? So we should probably mention we're probably not going to have the next meeting.
That is a good point. It would be on the 24th.
Do we want to have a meeting on Christmas Eve? I don't think that's probably a good way to get attendance. Probably not.
Yeah, okay. Well, that'll get the issue and everything will get scheduled and whatever, like next week, I think, automatically. So we can just reply on there and say like, we're skipping this one.
Yeah, let's just do that just so we can start to not confuse anyone who does decide to show up on the 24th. And so the next meeting will be on the on the 7th of January 2022.
All right, sounds good. Well, I guess in that case, I'll see you all next year.
Awesome. Take care, everyone.